welcome to this event. This is an event run in conjunction with the university's alumnus relations team. Thank you very much, guys. Hayden and James, thank you very much. And really the purpose of today is to really showcase the experiences of some of our ex-students who are going to share really some information about their particular journey, their career journeys to date. So I'm joined by a panel of our wonderful ex-students. In a moment, you'll get to meet them, they'll introduce themselves to you. Just a little bit of housekeeping before we go. The session is going to be recorded, as you can see, but students, yourselves will not actually be recorded, so your responses won't be recorded and you won't be filmed or anything, but the panel and their responses will be filmed. At the end of the panel discussion, there's going to be about 30 minutes of Q&A, so that will be your opportunity to engage with our wonderful panel in real time. Obviously, afterwards we have some refreshments as well at about 5 onwards, and you can circulate and network and chat as you wish. My wonderful assistant over here is about to change the slide. Oh, there we go.
My work is done.
Yeah. So aside from introducing our panel in terms of who each of our panel members is and their year of graduation, there is a QR code, and that QR code will take you straight through to a bit of software called Slido, and Slido will allow you to ask particular questions, and those questions will be logged. So this is a means of you actually registering your question ahead of time. All right, so that will be for the Q&A session, as I understand it. Right, so we have 3 alumnus panel members today, as you can see. I'm very pleased to introduce, in no particular order, Lema, Lisa, and Michael. So I think probably the first thing to do will be to get each of you to just say a little bit about yourselves and your current situation. Just a few minutes, really. I will start with Lema.
Perfect. Let's see if this is working.
There we go. Yeah, should be working.
Hello. Hello, everyone. You already know my name is Lima, but it's really nice to see you all here. I am a first-year PhD student here at the University of Westminster, and I am pursuing my PhD in pharmacology, toxicology, and pharmacy. I graduated in my bachelor's in pharmacology and physiology last year, so I intended to pursue a PhD straight from my bachelor's directly into a PhD.
Hello. Okay. Hi. So my name is Lisa. I graduated from here in 2021 in Pharmacology and Physiology. I'm currently a trained clinical scientist at Imperial Healthcare, NHS Healthcare. We are based across like 3 hospitals in London. I am specialising in respiratory and sleep science. So for all of you that don't know, so to become a trained clinical scientist, you go into this program called the Scientist Training Program, which is like a 3-year training program in collaboration with the NHS. So you do your masters and you work for 3 years on the side, and you kind of learn on the job and do your masters on the side. And I'm due to finish in July, and after that I already secured my job to be a senior clinical physiologist at my trust as well.
Hi, my name is Michael. I work as a study startup specialist, so that just involves starting up trials at the trust I work with, which is at the Barts Health NHS Trust, with the Barts Cancer Institute and Queen Mary's University. Unlike the rest of the panelists, I did not go back into academia, but I think there are other routes into work and working in science and pharmacy and pharmacology. So yeah, this is the route I've taken.
Excellent, thank you very much for that brief intro. So what we're going to do now is have a panel discussion for about half an hour, 3/4 of an hour, roughly, somewhere along those lines. And I've got a series of questions that have been panel, and I'm going to ask each person in turn, and we'll start with Lima again for no particular reason, but we will. Lima, what did you do at Westminster that helped you figure out your career path? What would you do differently if you had your time again?
So, as you were all assigned a final year project in your third year of your bachelor's, I was pursuing my final year project, and I'll be honest with you, I was really interested in the particular techniques carried out and the field of interest, which is essentially ion channels in specific using electrophysiology techniques. So I took the initiative to get into contact with my supervisor. I had already had an idea to pursue further studies, and at the time it was a master's, just because I did not know that it was not mandatory to undertake a master's after your bachelor's in order to pursue a PhD. So yeah, I took the initiative to get in contact with my supervisor and let him know if he's offering a particular project or essentially further my final year project through my PhD. And your second question was, what would you do differently? One thing that I would have done differently is, despite me enjoying my final year project thoroughly, one thing I had a habit of is being very specialized and focused on that, although that is what you should do when intending a PhD. But one thing I would recommend for you all to do is consider other options aside from your field of interest. It will not only benefit you to gain further transferable skills, but also you'll gain the opportunity to collaborate and network with other people, other academics, aside from the field of interest. So that's one thing that I would definitely consider, especially in your final year. It's definitely important to consider other opportunities, other advice from different lecturers and academics.
Thank you very much. For no particular reason, Michael next.
Okay.
Michael, use it, I think, as that.
Is it
Michael's a
Doesn't
bit
work.
woofy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So same questions to you, Michael.
Yeah, perfect.
What helped me figure out my career path? I think I sort of had an idea of what I wanted going in because I'd originally gone to pharmacy school at Aston University. So I came in here at second year and I sort of had some background knowledge on what was going on here as it pertained to pharmacology and the idea of the science behind medicines. And so I came here thinking that I wanted to gear my studies towards more of a oncology, as that's what I do currently. I work as a startup specialist for the Barts Cancer Institute, so I do a lot of the cancer studies that come in. So my final year project, I focus more readily on the neurocancer. So I did glioblastoma, which was kind of different for a lot of the people in my tutor group. I know a lot of other people stayed with stroke medicine, which, though was interesting to learn about, wasn't what I wanted to have a major focus in. So I'd say definitely gear your final project towards what you want to do going forward. What I would do differently, I think bioinformatics was probably a bad choice, though I really did enjoy understanding, the I guess the different genes and proteomics and stuff that goes into it. I think that one was not my favorite choice of module, and I found that out quite late down the line. So maybe just be a bit more diligent in terms of choosing your optional modules. I think that's a very good advice I can give you.
Gave you PTSD with the bioinformatics there. So there was a couple of things that I did to kind of help figure out what I actually wanted to do. So I didn't start off doing pharmacology and physiology. I actually transferred from biochemistry. So I kind of transferred towards like the end of second year, which was a unique case, but I kind of chose over my optional modules that were the pharmacology core modules, so it wasn't too much of a difference. But because of that, you just mentioned about your final year project. I actually didn't really have a pharmacology specific per se. It was more biochemistry related. So I do want to say that, if you're doing a project that you're like, maybe this is not something that I want to pursue in the future, don't worry. It's not the end of the world. Of course, it is amazing when you're doing something that you're like, oh my God, this is so interesting. So one of the main things that I did to kind of help figure out what I wanted to do was that I bothered everybody that I could talk to. And I mean all the lecturers. I specifically remember like emailing them, being like, oh, I want to do this course, like maybe this master's in the future. Do you have any advice for me? And they would agree to either like read drafts or arrange to talk to me about career options. So I would just highly, highly recommend to reach out to whoever you can. One thing I would do differently if I had some time was there were some really interesting societies. I mean, I know you guys are in like your second and third year, but I remember the St. John's Ambulance Society was really cool, and you can get a lot of experience into healthcare that way. So I would have definitely stuck it out a bit more. Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks very much. So next question, and we'll start with Alima again over here. What were your worries in terms of opportunities coming out of your degree versus your actual experience?
So, sorry guys. Like I mentioned before, I had the intention to pursue a master's, just because I had no idea that it's not mandatory to essentially pursue a master's and then undertake a PhD. So that was one of my main worries, that essentially due to time, I wouldn't be able to pursue what I had already in mind and a particular field of interest. But fortunately, with not worrying about that and having the opportunity to be informed by my supervisors and other lecturers within the department, I had the opportunity to thoroughly understand what my intentions are and what future goals. Sat down one-to-one sessions. I also had the opportunity to contact Employability Hub within the university, and they essentially helped me perfect my application process in order for me to gain the position that I am in currently. But yeah.
Thank you. Lisa?
I think one common thing that most people worry about when you're doing a science degree is that, am I going to have enough lab experience? Am I going to have enough like experience in the industry to go into whatever you want to go into? So that was a great kind of place of worry for me. But it's not the end of the world. What I went into in the end, anyways, to have like, for example, like a year where you take out and go and do placements. One thing to bear in mind is that if you have not got like as much experience, you're just gonna have to start like kind of like a low pay grade and work your way up. But it's not impossible, and actually that's gonna benefit you in the future anyways, because you're gonna have a longer experience than others. And what I also noticed that even though I lacked in some of like the lab side of things, because I finished my undergraduate during COVID, I made up for a lot of that in knowledge. So this course is very well rounded. So that was one main thing that really helped me. Yeah.
In terms of employment, worry-wise, I think a lot of people would probably go in and think it's going to be difficult to get a job, obviously, because you don't have the experience. You've just come off of an undergrad. But I think it's a very important thing to do whilst you're in your undergrad. It's to get some experience. I did some shadowing experience with some renal oncologists at Royal London Hospital back when I was 18. That definitely helped me a lot to get some experience, because at that point I wanted to go into medicine, and that just fell through. And I think having little bits of experience doing things in the medical field can definitely help you if you want to pursue a job in that field. I think, like Lisa said, it is sometimes quite difficult to find, the higher paying roles, but I think it is also important to do the entry level roles as initially, because it does get you the experience that you would need essentially to move up the ladder. So I think I work with quite a lot of clinical trial assistants at the moment. So they obviously are mainly on the data management and sample processing side of clinical trials. And I think that is a very good role to have, because that gets you in the lab. It also gets you working with external stakeholders, with big pharma companies, and with that you can network and gain some friends in the world. I've got loads of people I know from big pharma in AstraZeneca and MSD, Pfizer. So it's great to initially start there, but also, you know, get talking to people and make those relationships. I think LinkedIn definitely helped me a lot. You know, having a LinkedIn profile definitely gets your face and your name out there to people that you might work with. So yeah, I think those would be some tips I would give.
Okay, so this next question, I'm not entirely sure it's applicable to everybody, but I think there will be an equivalent response anyway. So, what was the hiring process for your current position like?
So at the time when I was applying for my PhD, the process that I undertook was applying for a studentship. So essentially, I applied for a fully funded opportunity where Quinton Hogg Trust partners with Westminster to offer a certain amount of students to undertake a PhD. And essentially, when you're undertaking a PhD, there's several different offers that you can go through route-wise, whether that be self-funded, school-funded, and charity organisations such as Quinton Hogg Trust to help fully fund your opportunity, your PhD. But essentially, the process involved submitting a CV application as well as a research proposal. And this research proposal involves each year that what you intend to undertake throughout your PhD. If you already have in mind the particular supervisor that you want to work with, it will be really useful to get into contact with them and get the idea of what, whether that schedule that they have already planned, that you can implement within that proposal. But the process also involved following an interview stage. Fun fact, today was my interview last year on this very date for my PhD. Yeah. So yeah, you get an interview where the school, you'll have a panel that ask you questions, and these questions involve just general questions about why you're deemed as a potential candidate to undertake that particular project. And after that, because I undertook through a fully funded route, the Quinton Hogg Trust panel assessed my application through what was explained and written in detail from the panelists within the school. So yeah, that's what the process involves.
Great stuff. Lisa.
So as I mentioned, I'm on the scientist training program, but just to give you a bit of background, so I started as an assistant clinical physiologist at the same trust, and whilst I was working there, I happened to find out that our trust does the STP as well. So I kind of expressed interest to my manager about the program, who then said that we'll consider it. But there was a couple of people who were interested in the same program that were working with me, so I had to interview against them. There's a couple of ways you can apply for the STP. So the way I've done it was the internal way, when you're already working in the NHS and they have a space, and they it's kind of like more of a direct process. But you've got like the external applications where anybody can apply, and you just complete an online form with all your education, past experience, and you have to fill out a personal statement. I think it's about 1,500, which is like the most important thing when it comes to applying for the STP, because you kind of get all your points from the personal statement. So because I was internal, I didn't have to do that actually until after the interview. So I had the interview, I was told that I've got it, and then I had to go and fill out the application on the National School website, and yeah, that was the same process at the end.
Thank you. Very cool.
Thank you. I think mine was pretty standard, as you would for a normal job application. I think it was very much you go on the website for the university. I think where I could answer this question and be more helpful was how I, worded my application, in the sense that I used a lot of the skills that we learn here at the university, so research methods and how you would, work with the data you have in order to create an outcome, or use that to answer your theory. I think I used a lot of that to round out my application, and of course with my final project being geared towards clinical trials, and my one was specifically on how carmustine and temozolomide increased overall survival in glioblastoma. And I used sort of that information and that sort of wording to sort of gear me towards the clinical trials aspect. And of course, you have to just sort of see how your other transferable skills that you may gain over the time you are at the university can bolster your application. That's sort of how I went about it.
Okay, thank you very much. This is kind of a related question, but I'll ask anyway. Where do you advise students and recent graduates to find job opportunities? What was your experience of that process?
I'll go first.
Yeah, why not?
So I think I prefer the idea of going via the academic route or via the hospitals, especially with that area that I've gone into. I think that is a lot easier off the bat. I think right now with a lot of pharma companies, they're expecting a lot more experience out of you before you can get some of their entry-level roles. So I looked straight on to a lot of the big institutions that we have here in London, as I'm a Londoner. So I went on Queen Mary's website, went on Imperial's website, King's College London, and they obviously have quite a lot of roles, and because they are the kind of roles that people come in and out of just to gain the experience. There's always a role available at some point in time. So I think that was the main place I would go to would be the NHS website and the different institutions in London.
Thank you.
So I would go to the NHS website straight away as well. But interestingly, LinkedIn actually has some good recommendations as well. I don't know if I'm just getting old, but I actually stay on LinkedIn quite for a prolonged time. So I would recommend, let's say you have a couple of institutions that you like, follow them, maybe even ask to contact with some of the people that work from the institution, and you would be surprised that some people actually do reply more often than not, and are willing to help others out because we've all started from somewhere, The other thing I would do is that if you're interested in, let's say, so I'm just going to use my example, let's say you're interested in respiratory science, okay? You want to have a look, maybe do some research with specific lung diseases like COPD, ILD. You can just literally Google the departments for the hospitals, and you say you find the manager's email them. We have had so many students that have come for 1 or 2 weeks just to get some experience with us. Obviously it's unpaid, but it is a really, really good way to kind of get insight into what the specialty involves and what it would be like to work in that field.
Thank you.
I definitely agree with Lisa with the LinkedIn, and Michael mentioned it earlier, the previous question. LinkedIn is probably the best platform to utilize when it comes to job opportunities. You have a direct way of getting into contact with people in the field of interest, but also at the University of Westminster, there are several networking opportunities where events such as these are held in order for you to pursue the option to network with people and collaborate, especially when you have the idea of what particular opportunity you want to undertake. There's different ways in getting in contact with current academics, and especially with the different opportunities offered. I know last year I was attending several networking opportunities. We had several external speakers as well coming from different specialist backgrounds. And because at the time I was focused in considering my next option for my career path, it was absolutely significant in considering and attending these events. It holds a lot of significance within your idea of what field of interest you want to undertake.
Thank you.
Sorry, I forgot to say, we have societies, so I don't know if you've been advertised, the Physiological Society. They hold so many events, and the one I normally go to is the ARTP, which is the Association for Respiratory Technology and Physiology. They have so many events, and it's full of the people that are in the field, and it's a great way to network.
It's all right. I'm sorry, coughing. Okay, so Michael, you actually brought this up a little bit a moment ago, but we'll fill this answer out, I think. Is there anything on your CV that you think has given you an edge in your career today? So maybe Michael start.
Yeah, I would definitely say that, you know, having that major focus on my research project definitely helped me a lot. I think, of course, you know, you come out of university, not often do you have work experience under your belt. So using that research that you've done, that knowing that you're able to do a full research project, be it, you know, a questionnaire sort of project, or if it's actually a meta-analysis like I did, you know, I think having that experience is very key to, you know, being able to show that you're able to work independently as well as gain information and put it into prose. I think that is very important. So definitely make sure that's on there. And of course, depending on what field you want to go into, like what modules did you do here at the university that, you know, is getting you to that place that makes you want to go into that field. I think a lot of employers want to see that. When I'm looking at CVs, a lot of the time that's sort of what I want to see, especially from the entry level roles. I want to see what you've done and why you find it important, or why you think you'll be good for a role with me at my institution. So yeah, that would be a good place to start.
So I agree with Michael. So obviously, when we're looking at CVs, we want to see what experience you've got. Even I think some people think that just because you've done these sort of like practicals at uni, that they don't really like count towards your skill set. They absolutely do. And when you mention them, it actually makes you stand out quite a lot. So actually, one of the projects that I did was Gene Editors of the Future program. I don't know if any of you heard about it. I think Dr. Campana does it. So it uses CRISPR-Cas9 for like genome editing, and it was really, really interesting. Made me like realize I actually don't want to do genome editing, but regardless, because it's so difficult. But regardless, it was something that made me stand out on my applications. I also volunteered at UCLH for I think like 5 years. I was a ward volunteer, and I also had my role switched a little bit during COVID. I supported like on the ICU, so like when it was like the first breakout, nobody knew how to like put on and doff PPE, so I was literally there helping the doctors. Voluntary experience does matter. Not only do you give back obviously to the community, and you meet some amazing people, like the patients are really interesting sometimes in a good way. But it also makes you stand out on your application as well.
Yeah, I think just following up on that, I think, you know, that work experience, it might seem sort of menial to you at the time, but I think it's a very good way to ask all the questions. You have the staff on the ward everywhere, and the nurses, the doctors, the HCPs, the allied health professionals, they're all there to help you. They're all there to help you go to where you want to be eventually. And I think if you ask the right questions for the right people, they'll be able to guide you. And I think that's also something you could take down and sort of note for yourself, or whenever you want to make an application. Put that on your application, put that on your CV. I think that would help you a great deal. That definitely helped me when I did my shadowing experience. So definitely do that.
Within my CV, I have essentially like added all the details with regards to direct skills that link to my PhD, but also some transferable skills. So I also run a small business alongside carrying out my PhD, and despite it not having any relevance to the particular project that I undertake, it has several different transferable skills. For instance, when carrying out PhD, you're required to network and collaborate with others, whether that's within the same institute but outside of the institute. And one thing that I've learned through carrying out my small business is gaining good communication skills. Another key transferable skill I have been able to obtain is essentially learning to time-consuming skills, essentially be well organized, and these are really relevant skills to have when choosing to pursue a PhD.
Fantastic, thank you. What top piece of advice do you have for students who are navigating their career currently? You want to start again? Yeah.
Right. So, like I mentioned previously, some of the top pieces of advice I would signify is continue networking and essentially utilizing these opportunities offered within the university, whether that's something called Ignite funding. It gives the opportunity for both undergraduate and postgraduate students to obtain a particular project, or essentially get funding for a particular workshop that you want to attend, and gain these skills to provide for your future career path. But also another top advice I would give is continue keeping into contact with lecturers aside from the assigned scheduled sessions. They are definitely there to advise you for your future career path, not only there to teach you the scheduled sessions.
One thing I really advise everybody to do is please do not focus on other people and what everybody else is doing. It is so easy to, kind of like, oh my god, this person's already, secured the PhD role. It doesn't matter. You will achieve everything in your own time. So I think just comparison is the thief of joy. Do not do it. Communicate with your personal tutors, your supervisors. They will be the biggest source of help. At least they were for me as well. Make sure that you communicate with your friends as well, like course friends as well. They will be able to keep you going, and also in the future you never know, you might end up working together.
Thank you. In terms of tips of how you go about finding what your career path is, I think the thing that you would do for when you wanted to get to this university in the first place, I think is a similar thing. You wanted to do pharmacology, I'm assuming, or that this sort of fell in your lap. I also think that you would want to do some research in that realm as well. What kind of roles do a lot of former students do, like ourselves here on this panel? What kind of roles do you think would be best fit for your personality type? Are you the kind of person that wants to sit behind a desk all day, or would you like to be in a lab, or would you want to be a more collaborative person in the science field? I think you should definitely figure out the kind of person you are so that you can translate to the kind of role you want to go into. That was the one thing that I learned being here as well. I think being here and collaborating during the bioinformatics course, that one was very much a group project to do the wiki page. So I was enjoying that, taking the lead on making sure that we got certain information ready and put together. That's kind of the way that I like to work, and so that's translated into what I'm now doing currently, which is collaborating with stakeholders and working with site staff and making sure things are in place. So yeah, I think gaining a good understanding of how you would be or who you want to be as a working in the workforce is definitely a good first step. And also just figuring out what interests you. I think that's very important. I was obviously really interested in cancer and oncology. That was my major focus, and that was what I always wanted to do. And so I kept that focus, and I looked at institutions that did have sort of a good cancer institution, had good roles there, and had things that I would enjoy doing going forward. So I think those would be the best ways to get yourself going in your first steps.
Super, thank you very much. Just a couple of sort of ancillary questions. Everybody has regrets. Do you have any specific regrets in terms of what you didn't do when you were pursuing a career pathway or kind of exploring career options?
Can I give you a philosophical answer?
Please do.
I don't regret whatever I didn't do. Hear me out. And just because I am happy with where I am today, and I managed to get from A to B. Was it along the route? Maybe, but I'm happy with where I am today, so actually I wouldn't regret anything. I don't regret anything.
No, go ahead.
I think my major regret was going to pharmacy school because yes, and I know Steve's not, so that's good. I went to pharmacy school thinking that was going to be the job for me. I was going to do, the prescribing, dispensing, and I was going to be on the ward and work in big pharma. And honestly, it wasn't. I just didn't find it super interesting. So I was quite happy that I did leave that course eventually. And then when I got the course here, I was a lot happier because this was a major focus on the science, but also left, what I could do afterwards a little bit more open-ended. I found pharmacy itself was more closed in terms of what the outcome was going to be. You're going to be a pharmacist, a chemist, or in a hospital ward, or eventually, if you were good enough, get into pharma and do your drug development. So I was happy to come here, and I really made sure that that was going to be what pushed me forward, and that's what made this experience here, though COVID ridden, enjoyable, I think that would be my major regret. And it wasn't so much for here. I think if I was having any regrets here, it was I didn't utilize the people around as much. I think everybody here else on the panel did utilize the different. What did you guys go into? You went to a lot of the what are they called? Yes, like the supervisors. I didn't do a lot of that. I did most of my things very independently. I think also because I was a bit older, I had sort of an idea in my mind of what I wanted to do regardless. But it would have been good if I had utilised the people around me here and a lot of the tutors a little bit more. That would be my major regret.
I also want to emphasize that I don't have any regrets. I'm incredibly happy at the stage that I'm in right now. But because Chris asked, one regret I do have is, even though I do intend to stay in academia currently, is the opportunity to go and work. Maybe it would have been best to also have the option to apply for jobs alongside master's degrees and also PhD degrees. I just had my mind set to one thing, and that was just furthering my studies. I didn't have the option to consider job applications working at in industry. So that would have been that's probably one regret, and I would recommend having that option as a backup if you, despite having your mind set to a particular field or interest, have the backup option as well.
Great stuff. Just one final question, I think, and this is potentially something that might lead into a bit of a networking discussion with audience members afterwards. Do you have any specific advice for someone interested in the same or similar field to the one that you have gone into? Lisa?
So when it comes to any NHS application, it doesn't matter if you don't want to do respiratory or sleep. One thing about NHS applications, and I know this because I've scored quite a few of them now, the main points, like the main section where you get your points from is in the personal statement. So that's the biggest thing that we score. So a lot of the points, like let's say there's 60 marks you can get, and each little section is actually picked from the person's specification. So as long as you mention those things in the personal statement, it's like, oh, 2 points here, 2 points there. So that's really one big way to score in any NHS job. And as I said before, obviously I had the fear of not having enough experience. So I started at a lower pay grade and went up. Do not be scared to also go for the slightly higher ones. So the NHS works in banding, so it goes from band 2 to band 8. After graduation, we have people who've gone into a band 5 job. I went into band 3 at the beginning. But yeah, don't be scared. Just go for it, because you never know who's actually applying. Most of the time, it is people who have very different experiences, and we have had plenty of people come into our trust with different degrees, and they do an amazing job. And when it comes to the NHS and what I'm doing right now, if you're ever considering the SDP, there's so many disciplines. I highly recommend you to check out the National School. You can do lab-based ones, you can do clinical-based ones that I do, you can even do engineering ones. So yeah, there's a variety of things. So yeah.
Ask you to repeat the question.
Not at all. No. Do you have any specific advice for for someone interested in the same or similar field to
Right.
the one that you've got into?
Okay. Specific advice, I think. That's a good question. I think.
Would you like me to go first? And then
Yes,
you
I'll
can
have a quick think.
Sorry. One piece of advice I would recommend if you were interested in a similar field as me would be make the most of the few months just before starting your further studies, and that would be essentially Googling webinars that are free that you can join online or in person, with conferences that are related to the same field. That way you'll already be confident in the field, understanding and learning, gaining that extensive knowledge around the field, getting you confident when you're officially starting, and you can already have an idea of what you'd like to implement within your particular project.
Sorry, I finally got my head around the question. I think if I wanted to give any advice for someone who wanted to go into a similar role as I would say it's like everybody has said, I think it's very good to research the roles. I think understanding first what you want to go into and then doing your research into the kinds of roles that are available to you at the level you want to go in at is very key. Like everyone is saying as well, a lot of the time coming out of university, it is very entry level, but that is typically the experience of someone who is just recently graduating. So it is important to stay open-minded about those roles, and go into them regardless, and just be, go full throttle and just say, listen, I want to do as best as I can, get all the experience I can, and speak to everybody I know. Do the networking as it pertains to the role, and get as many friends in high places. I think that is a good advice I've heard any. I think, and also just make sure your application is really good. Make sure you're hitting all the different points in the job description. I think that's very important. Make sure even if you haven't got direct experience in that, you are able to show how your experience in university or in your personal life or in your volunteering can translate to the role that you're applying to. But first and foremost, have an idea what you're going into. I think that's the key.
Great, thank you. It's one recurrent theme that I've noticed actually is several people have mentioned the personal statement element of the CV or application. That seems to be absolutely key, which I guess isn't really surprising in a way, because it's your opportunity within a fairly rigid format to actually sell yourself concisely, and I think that's important as well. And from the point of view of somebody that's read through a lot of CVs, both from an academic point of view and actually reviewing CVs for applicants to positions here at the university, you like concise. Concise is good. Concise, snappy, informative. Really, really important. So yeah, I think that's excellent advice. That's the end of the formal questions. So I think I'd like you to raise your hands in appreciation of our wonderful panel. Thank you. Now there's an opportunity for you guys in the audience to ask any questions that you may have. If you've already recorded those on Slido, that's great. Do we have any?
We don't, but sorry if I don't recall. Lisa, my apologies for not recording names. So you mentioned you were doing a biochemistry course and you managed to slant it towards a pharmacological direction in your third year. Now, to just elaborate on myself and what I want my trajectory to be, and I don't mind feedback from anybody, but I am doing biochemistry. I have got pharmacology modules that I've done and a medical physiology module, and I can't remember the name of the third year module that requires them both, but it would be leaning in that clinical direction. I just can't recall the name of the module off the top of my head, but I want to get into neurophysiology and pharmacology, and I don't know. I did get some advice from the panelists, but on some level, I'm asking, how did you get those? How did you manage to achieve those optional modules that you wanted to do in third year? And also, if I'm someone looking to do further education in neurophysiology and pharmacology, like what would that format be? Would I be doing something like a PhD in neuroscience, but my research projects are oriented around physiology and pharmacology? Is there a joint PhD, or is it almost like a suitable baseline masters that I do and then branch out? I just want some ideas, I guess.
So, would you want to transfer to pharmacology and physiology now? Is that like, what year are you? Second year?
I'm second year, yeah.
Okay. So, well, speak to Chris after this, because I had to. He may be able to answer you more, but based on my experience, so in the first year when I was doing biochem, for my option module, I chose Foundations in Pharmacology and Physiology, which is like one of the core modules in pharmacology. And then I did the same thing for second year. So yeah, that's how I kind of did it. I was still kind of deciding at the end of like first year whether I wanted to transfer or not. So I think that was the main reason why I didn't do it then. But I think, I mean, don't quote me on this, but I think if you're doing the core modules already for pharmacology, I think would the transfer be possible?
It becomes, I think it's probably fair to say it becomes more difficult to transfer the further you get through the degree. And really, once you get to level 6, it's just not possible because the modules tend to be quite specialised and the core pathways are quite specialised. But certainly up to and including level 5, it is possible, generally speaking. Yeah. Yeah,
so I would recommend that. And just see what they say. And also, if you choose, like, I'm sure you could do some of the neuro modules as optional modules as well. So if you're interested in neurophysiology, obviously definitely choose those. In terms of masters and PhD, so people go down on different routes. So you went on the PhD route, which is amazing. But I found it easier to go down the master's route. So depends on what field of neurophysiology you're interested in. I would choose a master's in that. I think it's better to go with something a little bit more generic rather than something specific when it comes to your masters, because you don't want to specialize into something too quickly and then realize, oh, I don't like this. So yeah, that would be my advice. I don't know if you guys got anything else.
I just wanted to add. Sorry.
You said that you have the idea to pursue or specialize in neurophysiology and pharmacology, right?
Yes.
So you were just trying to confirm if there's a specific course that is offered. I'm not entirely sure if there is a specific course in particular for that field if you wanted to further your studies at Westminster. But you could definitely have the chance to have a look at other institutes that offer that. But also, you can directly get into contact with particular supervisors that are definitely, I'm sure, specializing in that particular field. You can also, if you do intend to carry out a PhD, there's a website called findaphd.com, and you can literally filter out the specific skills that you have or the particular place that you want to specialize in, and filter out those projects that are currently being offered. So yeah.
Yes. The SDP actually has a neurophysiology course, so that's something to look into. And if you want to come see me after, we actually have really strong ties with neurophysiology, so they accept students. So if you want to go do a few weeks there, I can give you the contact details.
Okay, yeah, thank you very much. I just a generalized question, but so it's more oriented around what you do your research on, but it'd be most preferable to do a master's that's more broad. And then even as you go along your PhD, you specialize into those additional fields that, related fields that you are interested in. Is that kind of a good schema to take away from?
I think that's probably a fair point, actually. And I think it's not uncommon for people even to get to their end of their degree, the end of their undergraduate degree, and still be a little uncertain about what the overall career trajectory is likely to be. So yeah, if you are unsure, then maybe a fairly broad-based MSc program that will get you in the right place, but will still give you sufficient flexibility to move around a bit.
Okay.
And so you're not, as I think's been said, you're not too specialised too quickly. Excellent. We've got, sorry.
I was just going to add to that because I think,
Yeah.
you know, a lot of the masters, if you go in and you're so niche at the master's level, you might not actually find the PhD that translates thereafter. Because if you go into a master's that is so specific and then you can't really, if you can't find the PhD that is actually available in that field, you will probably just be stuck with that master's unless you do something else and then go that next step. So yeah, I think it would be smart to do a broad one, like they've said.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, so as probably most of you know from myself, I did an MSc in Pharmacology and I hate it. Absolutely hate it. Pharmacology stinks in my eyes. Sorry about that.
Thanks.
This is heresy.
It's not for me. Yeah? But one thing I did get from that is research skills that I can then translate, so I can reflect back on what I did enjoy from my undergrad, and then I want to pursue the PhD in that. And also, if you think that you have the knowledge or the broad sort of understanding of an area, maybe a Master by Research might be a better option. So you spend a year within the lab doing the research skills and getting the techniques at the lab base rather than going back over sort of content and then doing projects at the end of it. And you can always, even if you decide you hate that project, you've got lab skills that you can translate into a different area of PhD.
Okay.
That's my advice.
Yeah. Thank you for that. We've actually got a number of questions, so we are going to sort of whip through these a bit. So if I can ask the panel members to limit their answers to something fairly succinct, that'd be great, just so we get through it all. First question, what did you find the most difficult when applying for jobs in your field after finishing your degree? Go. Oh no,
I think
Mike's over here.
I think interviews were probably the hardest part because that was obviously very fresh. You know, when you've done you know, just 3 years of study, oftentimes you haven't had the interview experience. So I think, you know, just being very confident. I think confidence is a huge thing when it goes into interviews, and obviously just being able to, you know, speak about what you want to do and how you're going to impact where you're headed to. I think that's really important skills to gain whilst you're here.
Thank you.
No, sorry, I don't really know. Do you want to go first?
Despite already knowing what I wanted to specialise in, throughout my course, my undergraduate, I utilised the Employability Hub. I did mention them earlier, but they were really useful in helping me dissect my CV and essentially analyse how to perfect it for these particular job opportunities. So that's one thing that I found really difficult at the time. I had no support in helping me perfect that and making it outstanding to essentially sell myself, like Chris mentioned earlier. So definitely utilise the opportunities offered at the institute.
Thank you very much.
So this might sound a bit silly, but I struggled to find out actually what the jobs are actually called that I want to apply for, if that makes sense. So like, yes, I'm trained clinical scientist now, but you know, I'm going to be applying for clinical physiologist roles or trained clinical scientist roles, or you know, there's all different sorts of names. So I think that was the main thing that I kind of struggled with. But you just need to do your research and make sure that you're actually applying for the right job, because I applied for the wrong one here and there, but you know.
Okay, thank you. So the next question is, for NHS job applications, writing a personal statement is the same as a cover letter, yes or no?
Yes.
Yes.
One is a kind of more expanded form of the other, really, isn't it?
Yeah, so do you guys remember when, back in the day when you applied for uni, you had to write like a personal statement for that? It's basically that, but a little bit more professional, a little bit more based on your skills and, you know, what you've covered in uni, rather than like, you know, this is why I'm interested in this. It's more of a, like, yeah, literally just showcase yourself how you would with a cover letter.
Okay, this is a good question actually, because it's related to this. Any more advice on how to keep a personal statement concise while ensuring it covers the requirements for the role without sounding like it was written by ChatGPT?
Don't use it.
Yeah,
No, obviously don't use it. But
we can tell when you guys use ChatGPT. I'm pretty sure your lecturer said that before as well. So one good thing about the NHS ones is that actually the longer the better, because I think, as I said, the word limit is 1,500. When I score the applications and if somebody just writes like literally 2 paragraphs, I'm like, what is this? So literally it's where you get your points. So you have a bit more freedom to yap in NHS applications. So if you're not really good at being concise, not too much of a problem, but just make sure you keep within that word limit.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Do you have
I
anything
just
to add
wanted
to
to,
that? Yeah.
Another way you
Oh, sorry, sorry.
Another way you can keep your personal statement concise is whatever job application or PhD application that you are observing, match your whatever you want to list out, whether that's your skills in your particular experiences, match it with the requirements stated. That way you ensure that you've covered everything that is required of you for the application, but also keep it concise.
Thank you. There's some excellent questions here now, specifically from Michael and Lisa. So, first of all, I have a question for Michael. I'm not familiar with the study startup specialist position. What does this profession involve?
So specifically, we work with big pharma companies. We get a lot of the big trials that come in from the companies. So like AstraZeneca, for instance, we're working on quite a few big triple negative breast cancer trials. And essentially they will bring it to me and I have to basically do all the legwork to get it active and open at the site. So I'll work with the principal investigators. They're the ones who will lead on the trial, and the sub-investigators will have to sort out the budget. So we have to do a lot of finance work. We also have to work with a lot of the support departments. So pharmacy obviously are a huge one. They have to know whether or not they've got the requirements required of the drug to be able to be prepared at the pharmacy. So there's a lot of ins and outs and lots of chats that goes on there. We also have to work with pathology, imaging to make sure that the schedule is going to be able to, be done, and if we have the capacity. So it's a lot of back and forth with sponsors as well as the site team. So it's a quite a broad role. It's very sort of operational, but also more of a chatty role. Like you're the go-between between the site and the sponsor. So you have to be very good with talking to people. It's a lot of meetings, a lot of emails, but yeah, I'd say that is a very broad overview of how it goes. I would say.
Great. So it's essentially project management.
Yes. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I've got a portfolio of about 30 odd trials, and they are all
Wow.
in all different phases. So right now I've got a really big one. It's sort of huge because it's first CAR T trial that we're doing in testicular cancer. So it's a very big one. There's a lot of work and a lot of interaction going on pre the study actually coming to the site. But yeah, we work to good timelines and we have to be efficient. So yeah, no, it's cool. It's really big.
So you're an individual that's probably got a bigger inbox than Dr. Getting.
Oh yeah, 100 a day. Yeah, don't go for it.
Excellent. Thank you very much for that, Michael. Lisa, what were your shifts like when you first started? i.e. the timings, and did you have someone to guide you through it and give you support?
So when you first start in the NHS, you're gonna get training, like full stop. So normally you have like a buddy assigned that will just like train you during the day. So I did, when I first started as an assistant physiologist, we did 8 to 4. And because obviously I work in sleep science, we do overnight sleep studies. So unfortunately that involved night shifts. So, but when we did do night shifts, it was only once a month, 3 days a week. The shifts run from 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. Not the worst thing in the world because they're literally sleeping. And you just need to make sure that everything stays on. And I mean, obviously things do happen, and we get the very crazy disorders where you have to like make sure that patients don't end up hurting themselves. But we're not going to go into that. So yeah, once I started the STP, it was 9 to 5, Monday to Friday, and with the STP you get a study day. You can choose it most of the time. So I get Fridays off as a study day, and you get paid for the study day. So yeah, it's just literally 4 days a week now. I'm gonna be very sad when I need to go back to 5 days a week.
Okay. Thank you for that. So a few more questions. This is a slightly sort of more general one, really. What things can you mention in your CV, in your experience, guys, if you don't have much in the way of work experience?
So, this keeps turning off.
Oh,
Sorry. No, it's okay.
Many things that you can mention in your CV if you do not have enough work experience is using opportunities such as online webinars I mentioned, especially if you know what particular area you want to specialize in. It helps you to just gain that extensive knowledge around that field, and also it helps you build that collaboration. That way you can get into contact with other people that are specialized in that field, and you can build and essentially work with them. You can volunteer to shadow them in particular techniques you're interested in, and those skills are key to add within your CV without actually working with them.
Okay, thank you.
I'll keep that one.
Anybody got anything to add to that?
That's it. Cheers. I think it's buzzwords. I think is independent working. You know, I think a lot of people want to know that you're a self-starter and you can come in and basically be someone that gets given information and can work with it and do something with it as soon as you start. So I'd say, and also time management. I think that's very, very important. Like knowing that you're able to use your time effectively whilst you're in the workforce. I mean, they're paying you for a reason. So, and they don't want to waste that money. So I think that's definitely a good one to put on your CV as a start off.
Okay, Michael, whilst you've still got the mic, we have another question syndicated directly to your good self. How was your studies in pharmacy in terms of teaching modules and academic support compared before transferring to pharmacology?
I think, well, pharmacy was a lot different in that I think our contact hours were a lot higher there because on top of doing the normal modules, this was at Aston University, on top of doing the normal modules like, you know, your physiology, your formulations, you also had to do dispensing classes as well. So I was in the dispensing lab for about 4 hours every Tuesday. And then we'd also have dispensing exams. I think here the contact hours were a lot less, obviously because it was mostly classroom based as opposed to, you know, also doing that plus labs. And yeah, what was the second part of the question? Sorry.
That was it really.
Okay.
So really just asking you what was the contrast between the two experiences.
Yeah, I think that was the main difference. It was just not less contact hours.
Okay. Another question for Lisa. Lisa, you mentioned doing some work experience at the national school or something. Can you expand on it, please? And how can we get through to them?
Sorry, so I think I might have confused you. So the national school is the one who actually created the scientist training program. So the national school advertises it and they're the ones who fund it. So I didn't do any work experience with them, but basically the SDP is on the national school website, if that makes any sense.
Yeah. And there again, if anybody is interested in that specifically, afterwards, they can probably come and talk to you about it.
Yeah, of course. I haven't had a lot of contact with them. You normally just go to them if you have any issues on your course. So like some of my friends had issues regarding their training, so I haven't had any contact with them, thank God.
Thank you. There's quite an interesting final question, I think, really, unless any more come through. That's quite open-ended, but I think it's quite nice in terms of the experience and that we've got across the panel here. After finishing your undergraduate degree, is it necessary to go to postgraduate, or can you go straight to jobs, which is better?
Depends what you're looking for. I think, so as I said, a lot of my friends have gone just straight from undergraduate into their jobs. Some went undergraduate, master's, PhD. It honestly depends on what you want to achieve at the end of the day. I do have to say that when it comes to masters and undergraduates, a lot of people nowadays have undergraduates, okay? So I think what I found is a way to stand out, at least in my specific field was to have a master's. But it doesn't mean that will be the case for you. And plenty of people haven't got it. And if you worried about, was there something about like if you go straight into it?
Straight to job.
Yes.
Yeah, go straight to job. So like you could, or you could just literally do your undergraduate, work in the industry for a few years, then go and do your masters. That's absolutely fine as well. I finished my undergraduate, I worked for a year, and then I started my masters. So it honestly depends on what you like. I do have to say that if you take maybe longer than a year, I think it is harder to go back to academia because you're like, oh my god, the assignments come again, and yeah, it can be a little bit harder.
Yeah, I was going to say something similar as well, because I too wanted to go back and do a master's course after graduating here, but I also found that I wanted to get back into the workforce. I was a bit older, so I wanted to sort of get my career ladder started essentially. I think for those of you that want to go straight into your career after this, there are so many opportunities that can be given to you from your institutional where you end up working. Right now, I'm in the middle of completing my project management accredited course with the Knowledge Institute. So that was given to me by my workplace. They were obviously able to pay for that, and that was something that is going to obviously boost your CV, and you can be an accredited project manager doing that. So I think that was something that I really enjoyed. I think that helped me a lot. I think I will eventually try and get back into academia once again, but I think it depends on the person. I think if you're happy working and not having gone back into academia, that's just as fine. I mean, you just move up a lot faster, essentially. You're not spending time in education where you could be working, or vice versa. So, yeah.
Super, thank you. There is a late question that's come in as well, which is fine. Keep the questions coming, we've got time. And I think this is an excellent, very timely kind of a question, actually, given the environments in which we are living at the moment. Does your work include working with AI? To all panelists.
I would say it shouldn't for me personally, because I have to generate that data and analyze it myself in order for it to be novel, and with the help of AI that will definitely affect that. However, I do use AI tools to help me essentially during the day, keeping me well organized, setting up presentations, or if I have particular meetings and I want just a brief outline, AI can help you keep organized with that. So that's the only reason. That's the only thing that I use AI for. My supervisor's just there, so I'm just being very careful about answering that question.
Yeah, just for me.
That was definitely the right answer.
Sure. I think for me personally, I think there are some trials that are coming in that are using AI tools in order to develop the data that is being published nowadays. I think it's going to be an eventuality for all things, I would assume, as much as we want to avoid it, because we are scientists at the end of the day and we want to be the ones that are at the forefront. But I think there are ways for it to come into play and not for it to not also completely take over what you're doing. We still need the young minds, we still need our minds in order to move this forward. And so, yes, if you're worried about it, don't be, I would say.
So one thing about being in a clinical kind of area is that I don't think patients would like to be treated with AI, so I think I'm pretty safe when it comes to that. But when it comes to certain things like sleep studies, so we actually run an auto score analyzer on our sleep studies, which gives like a predicted score for the, like for example, obstructive sleep apnea, like for the severity of it. But they tend to be rubbish, so we have to manually score it anyways. But these sort of AI techniques are coming into the industry, unfortunately. Sometimes they're useful just to kind of give us an inkling, like, okay, if this patient has really severe sleep apnea, it's going to take me an hour to, do this study rather than like 20 minutes. So it can be useful, but I don't think it's going to completely replace us in a clinical field. Also for the more specialist sleep studies, like when we do the PhDs, so when you had electrodes on your on your scalp and you look at brainwaves overnight, the AI, like auto-scoring for those tend to be really poor. So once again, maybe in 10, 15 years time, they might be good. But I think in terms of scoring, yeah, so for that, it's not really something to be worried about. But in terms of equipment, that one's interesting. But I won't talk much about that. If you want to know about it, just let me know.
Okay, there are some more questions. They keep on coming, which is absolutely great because that's what we want. And there are two that are kind of connected to each other, so I'm going to treat them as the same question. What's the worst part of your job or role? What's the best part of your role, your job or role? What excites you the most about your job or your role? Who wants to take that one first? I can go first.
I think for me, it's getting the trial open. You know, we work. I like sort of working to tight timelines. I like to be quite efficient. So we typically work towards about a 3-month setup timeline from getting the local information pack from the sponsor to activating the trial at the site. And so we work on a global scale a lot of the time as well. So we oftentimes are the first global site activated, first patient on the trial. So that kind of thing definitely, gets me excited if I'm, opening the trial first and getting the first patient on. I think that is, that excites me. I think the worst part is probably people that are just not responsive. Unresponsive investigators are probably the worst. Obviously, I get that they're clinicians, they're busy, they have busy clinics, often have private clinics as well. So they are the hardest part of the role. Also, just keeping in contact with them in general, if they're actually ever going to respond to an email or if their mailbox is so full they don't receive it. But yeah, I'd say that's the worst part. But otherwise, yeah, I think the everyday thrill of getting things done is sort of what keeps me going.
Well, I work in the NHS, need I say more? Obviously, I think there's a big stigma around working in the NHS as being bad. It is not all bad. I actually really like my job in the NHS and I will continue to work in the NHS. But okay, some bad things that do happen is that obviously staff shortages, that's one of the main things. Obviously, sometimes we have to work under pressure. But after a while, I just kind of gotten used to it, to be fair. Just makes it, obviously, you don't burn yourself out. And you would think that in a sleep centre you wouldn't get abuse from patients, but you might come across that. So that's one thing that I kind of find difficult to deal with over the years. I never been much of a person that likes conflict, and I don't really like to not assert dominance, but just kind of stand up for myself and just be like, you're crossing the line. So that I found difficult, but good things. I most of the time have really good patients. I really do love my patients. Obviously, with us in the sleep centre, we see routinely like a lot of the same patients. So especially for the niche group of patients, like we do non-invasive ventilation. Those patients, I know literally all of them now. So when I see them, it's like, oh, like, hi, how are you? It's really nice, and I'm quite social. So I just like to, obviously, I do my job alongside it, but I also like to chat with the patients. And I find it really, really rewarding. And what excites me about my job, I really love the complex sleep studies that we do because you just see some really crazy things. So, do you guys want an example? No? Yeah?
Go ahead.
Okay, so there is a sleep disorder called REM behavior disorder. So, when you're in REM, you're supposed to be paralyzed, right? So that you don't act out your dreams. So we see that on the EEG with like a loss of chin tone, and you also see like the conjugate eye movements when you are just going like this. So for a normal person, you're supposed to be paralyzed so that you don't act out anything. Now, for some patients, you're not paralyzed. You end up acting out your dreams. So I've seen some really, really interesting stuff. I've seen people sing. I've seen people eat. I've seen people like try and punch the wall. Like, it's really interesting. I mean, not good for them, but it's interesting for me because I'm sitting there with that, like, what are you doing? Okay, with some of them, they don't, like, with RBD, they don't tend to get out of bed most of the time, but you have the other disorders that kind of gets you out of bed, but I won't go down that route. So that's what excites me, interesting sleep studies.
I'll start with the worst and then go on to the best. I'll be very honest. The worst part of my PhD is probably the long hours because I am working on a lab-based project. So some of the experiments and techniques can take several hours and it can be very time-consuming and tiring, especially when you're fasting. This one. But one of the best parts of my PhD would have to be that every single day is literally not repeated at all. It's something new every day. So that's probably also something that excites me, that I get to learn every single day. I think that I've learned enough, but no, the next day I'm learning something new. So, yeah.
Great, thank you very much. Excellent answer. Couple more questions. Actually, let's do this one first. Layla, is there any more advice or things to consider for those thinking about doing a PhD in the future that haven't been covered?
Definitely. If you already have your mind set to a particular project, some advice I would give you, I mean, I did briefly discuss it before, but I emphasize gaining extensive knowledge through different opportunities. That's probably my best advice. And also, another advice is it can be very hard, like I mentioned with this long working hours. Try to take it easy. It's not easy to do a PhD, so don't stress and overwork yourself. And also another thing, maintain a really good relationship with your supervisor. That way you can come in late sometimes.
Excellent. We'll go back to that penultimate question again, which I think is an excellent one. What careers did your colleagues you graduated with go on to do? Michael?
I think it was pretty spread out. I mean, obviously Lisa here has gone into sleep physiology, and I think some people did go on to do masters as well. I know a few that did do some pharma placements, so they did get into a pharma company. I think they worked with a BMS, I think, so that was quite a good one. I was quite proud of her. But yeah, I think it's very broad. It's never, a lot of people did go into work, some people went into further education. It depends on the person. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a very mixed bag. So I've had friends who kind of changed their careers. You know, one of them went into nursing. I'm very happy for him. But yeah, he just completely went off into a different route. Someone went into law, funny enough. But you can actually go into law with a science degree, by the way, like medical affairs. It's actually quite interesting. Not something I would do, but yeah, you can. And it's actually like a highly sought out job. So that's something to consider. I've had friends who obviously went on to do PhDs. So one of my friends wanted to do cancer research at the ICR. So yeah, really like diverse range of things.
Super.
Same goes for me. A lot of my friends did choose different options outside of the scientific field. So one of my really good friends is actually studying her master's in finance at the University of Westminster. But she never ever mentioned that she regrets doing a science-based undergrad degree, even though she already knew her ultimate goal was to continue in the finance and accounting field. But also a lot of my other friends have pursued and furthered their studies as well. One of my really good friends is pursuing a master's at UCL in experimental pharmacology. So yeah.
Excellent. So thank you very much indeed. I don't think we have any more specific questions at the moment. Obviously, subsequently, when we have a little bit of networking and refreshments, if you guys come up with any further questions, please don't hesitate to ask our wonderful panel. So thank you all very much, first of all, to our panel members for some excellent discussion, excellent insights and excellent answers. But thank you to you guys as well for coming, and I hope you've really got something out of it. we are now going to kind of bring this formal part of the event to an end, and hopefully we can all chat over a drink and some nibbles in a few moments. So thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.